The world is a very different place than it was just a few months ago, but one thing that hasn't changed is the sheer volume of smartphone leaks going on. As long as people want to know what's coming up next, there will be people dedicated to trying to sniff out exactly that. The latest in the leak parade is Samsung's Galaxy Note 20 series, which was detailed in renders obtained by Pigto, and I really hope I'm saying that name right, working alongside OnLeaks and XLeaks 7. Together, they offer our best look at the Galaxy Note 20s to date, but in many ways, they're exactly the phones you'd expect them to be. Both versions of the Note 20 pack spacious screens complete with tiny hole punches in their foreheads for front-facing cameras, though we might be looking at some big changes in dimensions this time. Pigto claims the regular Note 20 will have a 6.7-inch display, which is just barely smaller than the screen the Note 20 Plus is supposed to use. And if that doesn't sound quite right, well, look, I'm with you, and apparently so is noted leaker Ice Universe, who signal-boosted a list of specs on Twitter provided by someone named Ross Young, who claims the smaller Note 20 will have a 6.43-inch screen. Let's not argue about size all day though. I think it's more important to know that both of these screens are said to refresh at 120 Hz, and that they'll supposedly eat up quite a bit less power than other high refresh rate displays. No matter which version of the Note 20 strikes your fancy, they both have massive camera humps around the back, just like the Galaxy S20s did earlier this year. The Note 20 Plus reportedly packs a 108 megapixel wide camera and possibly a periscope-style telephoto camera, though most leakers seem to agree that Samsung's utterly pointless 100 times space zoom probably won't appear in these phones. And the regular Note 20 cameras? Well, look, there's hardly any agreement about that at all. At this point, there's little word on innovative new features involving the Note 20's cameras or the S Pen, which is kind of concerning. For a long time, Samsung looked at the Note line as its most premium offering, a tool for the uncompromising, who demanded the best in performance and cameras, and yes, even note-taking. Now that the S20 Ultra seems to be tipping into that territory, Samsung could really stand to rethink what the Note series should stand for beyond just a cool stylus. There have to be some more serious questions hanging in the air right now around Samsung though. For one, even if the Note 20 winds up being the best smartphone the company has ever made, how well is this thing going to sell? Samsung saw its profits tick up in its last earnings release, and while the company never really breaks down sales figures for its different divisions, some have suggested that much of that growth is thanks to Samsung's semiconductor and memory business. People still need processors and RAM and SSDs, and that's not going to change. Its high-end phones, on the other hand, don't seem to be doing so great. Korea's Yonhap News reported last month that Samsung told investors S20 sales were about 80% of what it saw from last year's S10 line, and that's more or less borne out by some other reports that have made the rounds in the last few days. The research firms Omdia and M-Science have also suggested that S20 sales are down compared to the S10s this time last year, and you have to imagine that's at least partially thanks to the coronavirus outbreak. Going into the back half of 2020, you can bet Samsung is furiously trying to lock down its plans. On a related note, here's another question. Will Samsung stick to its usual plan and push the Note 20 out the door in the late summer? For now, it seems like that's where we're heading. Reports suggest Samsung has been targeting an August launch, same as always. The only difference is this one would take place purely online. The Galaxy Note 20s have been in the works for a while now, so of course Samsung is eager to get them out the door. If I were at the helm of a massive tech company like this, though, I would be taking this time to rethink the idea of annual releases altogether. I mean, people were already holding onto their phones for longer before any of this started, plus producing millions of new devices each year has to take its toll on the environment. Throw in the fact that coronavirus is currently unsettling economies around the world and forcing people to rethink their lifestyles in a big way. The idea of taking a year off to refocus on priorities and strengthen my infrastructure for production, perhaps outside of China, sounds pretty good. Of course, that also means I'd be leaving money on the table, which is why I will almost certainly never be in a position to make those kinds of decisions. Oh well, your loss, maybe? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. The Galaxy Note 10 was one of my favorite smartphones of last year, and I'm kind of hoping Samsung just doesn't screw it up this time like they did with the S20s, but maybe I'm just being foolish and hoping against hope. As you might have noticed, I'm not in my living room anymore. I've converted my basement to something that approaches a workable studio, so thank you for joining me in my journey coming down the stairs as well. And for more on the Note 20 and basically everything else going on in tech, keep it locked to Engadget. If you have feedback, leave some in the comments or email me at v@engadget.com. We really appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.